Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and boy, do we have something creepy to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you've been hearing about it. There's been this creepy ChatGPT glitch that dropped the night before. I was driving home last night, and apparently people were sharing some of the creepiest images ever, shared on the internet, okay? To give you sort of an idea, ladies and gentlemen, how did this all begin? Well, somebody said, basically, if you go to, ChatGPT and you ask it, restore the attached photo. Apologies for the photo's contents. I know it's extremely strange. No questions, no explanatory text, just the restore image. Generate an image. So basically, people were going to ChatGPT, and God knows how much compute was being used here, definitely a lot. People are generating some crazy images. Now, what kind of crazy images, ladies and gentlemen? Well, immediately I saw this, and I was like, oh boy, I think I should make a video and talk about how downright disturbing some of this stuff is. So of course, ladies and gentlemen, there were some other photos that were being generated. For instance, this one right over here, similar character, sitting inside a pool, which appears to be in an absolute, I guess you could say, irradiated wasteland. You know, something straight out of Call of Duty 4's, what was it, like the Ukraine mission, where you're sneaking through? Yeah, 50,000 people used to live here, ladies and gentlemen. Today, only this synthetic being. So of course, ultimately, there were even more images that were being shared around, one with this A. Lamau. I may have to blur out the nipples. I don't even know if they are. Yeah, they actually, I think there are alien nipples in this somehow. So I think we're getting a little bit feisty with some of these generations. And of course, some of these can be quite normal, for instance, like this one right here of an alien smoking, or ripping a bong, if you will, right? Of course, there were also other images too that were being generated. For instance, this girl with an uneasy smile looking over her shoulder, seeing this weird fucking thing standing out there. Now, it's got what appears to be a hose for a nose, and I don't really know how to describe it other than, yeah, it's actually fucking unsettling. So of course, there were some more images too. For instance, as soon as people fed it this prompt, they got an image of what appears to be a baby sitting on top of whatever this thing is, in just, again, like this carpeted floor. It looks like an image from the 90s, if you will, the very early 2000s. And of course, ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it just got weirder and weirder from here. I don't know about you guys, but this shit looks pretty fucking cursed to me, ladies and gentlemen. In some cases, the Japanese started getting involved over here, fed at the prompt, and immediately they got an image of what appears to be this little girl sitting next to this demonic, teddy bear, giving me Silent Hill 3 vibes, if I'm going to be completely real with you. So I guess the question a lot of people can have, and a lot of people can ask, is how does the image model, when fed this simple prompt with no image to restore, think of some of the craziest things right over here? Man sitting with the crucifix in his hand while a giant, I would say, what is that, like a bluefin tuna sitting with him? How could it generate an image of this fucking crazy Donnie Darko looking shit inside what appears to be a very derelict kill dungeon? And of course, we all know where this image kind of comes from, where ultimately, at the end of the day, hands aside, Todd Howard should be the one wearing that, Teletubby outfit, holding the shotgun. And one image that I actually have to block out, which is the most disturbing by far. This image is of a girl laying inside a kitchen, completely passed out. Again, I don't know where this image sort of came from, where the training information really fired up from, but it is genuinely unnerving. Other images that I found too were obviously of Barney sitting inside this room with chairs all around him on top of what appears to be a pentagram. So again, ladies and gentlemen, again, it just keeps getting more and more disturbing. People overnight were finding out that when fed this prompt, they would get images of, the former president, Bill Clinton, laying next to an A. Lamau. Now, I would consider this to be more on the funny end, but, you kind of wonder, it's like the same prompt, and everyone's getting sort of all of these vastly different images, right? What the fuck is going on? Why are we getting Majin Buu sitting inside what appears to be, or laying down in this derelict, damp sort of room? It really does have sort of these, early 2000 kind of vibes, right? Like somebody captured this on a Polaroid or something. I don't know what kind of training data would be required to produce this image of a cat basically being latched on somewhere with, I don't even know if it's it actually has feet, or if the feet have been replaced by little hook chains. Maybe it's like fused together because the model's hallucinating. I don't know where in hell you would get the training data to like end up getting this from the prompt provided. And of course, certain images that were generated started to show you exactly where the training data got its images from. We've all probably seen this image. It looks creepy as fuck. But actually, this generated image is pretty much shot for shot similar to an image of, I believe it was like a kid's party or something. Maybe in like a hospital or something like that. I don't know the entire context of the story, but you can see that a bunch of these creepy Teletubbies, or like these Teletubby, costumed members were sitting around this kid. And obviously the way the photo is taken, the lighting, all makes it look creepy. But this was posted 10 years ago. So yes, you can kind of see that it's, when you take all of humans, when you take all of the actual, data off the internet and put it together, yeah, you can basically generate weird recreations directly of those images, and sometimes man-made horrors like this baby being held by this creepy-looking rabbit. So one thing that's kind of a commonality for this entire piece is obviously the graininess of the footage, the low light, and yeah, everything does look creepy. So I wanted to kind of dive into this and see exactly what was happening. So I ended up getting my own local artificial intelligence because no, I'm not going to fuck with ChatGPT. I'm not even going to give them my attention here in this case. I want to see, can I attempt to do this locally? So I got my own local Hermes model, actually fired up two models, a large language model and a small image generation model. And basically I had it feed the exact same prompt that people were feeding ChatGPT, and it actually built some images. So for instance, on this small stable diffusion model, it built images immediately like this, for instance, right? I don't know where the training data for this could have come from, but it genuinely is very creepy. A lot of things are sort of mixing together. For instance, images like this. I wouldn't necessarily say that's creepy, but you can see that it's got old, restored sort of footage. Everything kind of has sort of this, it sort of has this like similarity in terms of restoration. So how the fuck does this work, ladies and gentlemen? Is this a weird creepypasta glitch that people have found? Kind of, to be real with you. Now, image models, you can just download them and run them yourself. So if you want to not use ChatGPT, you can just run this stuff on your own. But to give you an idea, how ChatGPT kind of works is, according to them, this is their image generation model, and it actually has been releasing every year. It's a huge part of ChatGPT. Basically, to make these images, you feed this natural language, and ChatGPT will create an image based on the prompt that is fed into it. Now, I guess if you want to kind of look into how images are made, basically, at the end of the day, the way that images are produced is in multiple ways. But one of the most popular is what we call reverse diffusion, or just, diffusion models in general, stable, reverse, forward, whatever. You can see that an image starts off like this, and when you feed it an image of say dog or Shiba Inu, the denoising starts to happen based on the context, the tokens, and sort of all of the regressions that happen afterwards. So it starts from here, and then it ends up with this kind of smeary looking AI image. You can tell images are always AI because of garbled fucking text, or a weird smear, or that weird uncanny stare into the camera that a lot of the characters that it generates makes, right? So that's kind of, I guess, a rough example of how shit like this works. I don't know if you guys remember things like Loeb, for instance. Loeb was this creepypasta character that was discovered by an individual that basically found that when they were prompting in negative weights, accessing the latent part of these models, they would actually generate this fucking creepy character. They would generate the same character that would pop up in numerous different images, right? It would be just this persistent, demonic-looking character that would pop up. And I think it was something when they were actually prompting with the -1. So basically they would just have Marlon Brando, but then they would generate, the -1 would probably bring in Loeb in some capacity into the image. So how the fuck does this kind of shit works? Well, let's actually look at the prompt really quickly and just kind of demystify how you get into that creepypasta side of fucking LLMs, right? It's not magic. It's not we just uncovered the dark side to this fucking spooky system. Basically, there's 4 steps to how this whole thing basically, structures itself, right? One of them is the fact that the anchor for this entire thing is missing. So for instance, when you first start out and say restore the attached photo, basically there is actually no restoration. You never fed it a photo. So effectively that latent block has nothing visual to actually grab into. It basically kind of denoises into like some sort of vacuum, right? It doesn't have the image to restore. So at that point, emotions start to actually take over. Now, AI doesn't have emotions, but it does start to pick up on certain words. So for instance, the words very strange and don't accept explanations by, themselves are not nothing, but combined together, the AI is going to associate that to, hey, there's this photo that I don't know, and it seems to be disturbing because the person said it's strange and don't accept explanations, right? You could replace the words very strange with very sexy or very sweet, and you could get far different photos, right? Strange could actually be accelerated by saying it's very scary, very horrific, very violent. You understand? Except probably violent would probably trip the image generation model and go, hold on, can't make anything illegal. And then, of course, the third aspect of it is the word restore. Like I said, restoration, like a lot of the images that we saw were very low light, very like dimly lit, almost felt like, footage that was basically restored. The word restore literally feeds right into that actual prompt. And then, of course, because it's image generation, autoregression takes over. So once you've already had all these, three things, they compound more and more as the image is generating. Basically meaning that, yes, people have found a way to make ChatGPT, and to be honest with you, most similar vision models, more similar image generation models create creepy shit, right? It's one of the reasons why, again, a lot of these, companies put in guardrails to make it so that people can't find ways to use their image or video generation models to make stuff that is very, very grotesque, very disturbing, and in some cases, possibly illegal. And yeah, it's kind of like the actual thing Demystify, you know what I mean? Like last night I saw this and I was like, there is some creepy shit floating around. And then of course the rational part of me came in and said, no. This is just people who found a way to write a specific prompt to go from normal images being generated to actual spooky, disturbing images being slopped out. And that's basically kind of the story over here. So I guess at the end of the day, listen, even if you hate me, at least you kind of learn something on this channel. A lot of it has me, a lot of this stuff has me excited because at least I can kind of explain to you guys how this, crazy black magic technology actually works. No, there was actually no creepypasta. There was actually no horror, actually. This is working pretty much as intended, The AI takes this prompt and it basically grabs onto these 4 steps that it collapses on, and that's what leads to, again, Barney sitting alone in a fucking satanic ritual room. Yeah. There's no spook. A lot of people are kind of wondering, maybe this is a secret way to unlock the parts of the training data where you can prove that ChatGPT trained off of really illegal shit. And ultimately, that's a very serious accusation to make. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the training data for a lot of this stuff has basically been grabbed from every single corner of the internet. Some of the most positive, goofy cat videos to some of the most insane, creepypasta photos that you've ever seen float around. Jeff the Killers, your Russian sleep experiments, your goddamn, Ben Drowned, if anything. Everything that has been trained off of the spooky side of the internet still exists in this training data somewhere, right? Anytime you use the words creepy, scary, or horrific, you are always sourcing and bringing out that part of the space in the training data to reflect itself into your generated image. So at least you thankfully learned something. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be so scared, ladies and gentlemen. ChatGPT is not full of spooks. Like a large language model, it's just trained on a lot of data, and it has correlated points to other points and has made billions of parameters of information. So never be shocked when you go to an actual image generator and you ask it, hey, generate a strange image, makes those images, and then you go, oh my God. I think one of the things that I may have to ask is, obviously the spookiest image in this was the girl passed out at on the floor of the kitchen. You kind of wonder where the training data kind of came, for that. Maybe it came from some social media post. Maybe it came from some dark corner of a Chan thread. These are questions, look, I think are worth asking. But ultimately, the creepy stuff is only generated because that's just the direction everyone fucking prompted the thing to take in the first place. So ladies and gentlemen, yeah, there's been a creepypasta floating around on ChatGPT.
And it's been floating around for years. People are finding ways to break into that spooky side of the internet. Oh, at least these LLM models. You know, if it can happen on ChatGPT, I'm sure it can probably also be found on other image generation models too. You know, things like Gemini, fuck, what else generates stuff? I don't really know. But ultimately, at the end of the day, yeah, creepy shit, man. I was driving home and I was sent like some of these images and I was like, oh my god. And then I actually looked into it, researched it, and, you know, it all made sense. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.